All right, let's talk about a story that's so much more than just a crime. It's really about those silent warnings in relationships, the trust we give someone, and what happens when that trust is shattered. We're going to dive into the Shradha Walker case, a tragedy that really forced an entire nation to look in the mirror and ask some very tough questions.
And this quote, wow, it just cuts right through all the noise, doesn't it? It gets straight to the point. It really sets the stage for a story that, from the outside, might have looked like any other modern romance. But, as we'll see, it was hiding something much, much darker.
So, at the very heart of this story, we have two people, Shradha Walker, who was 27, and her partner, Aftab Poonawalla, who was 28. Their paths crossed, their lives got tangled up, and their relationship, well, it ended in a way that I don't think anyone could have ever seen coming.
Okay, so to really get a grip on what happened here, we've got to go back to the very beginning. Their story kicks off in one city, filled with all the hope you'd expect, but it takes this incredibly dark turn and ends in a completely different city with a truly nightmarish outcome.
You know how they started it's a story we've all heard before, right? They met at a call center in Mumbai, a friendship turned into love, and they decided, hey, let's build a life together. But even with that seemingly normal start, friends were already saying that there were serious problems right from the get-go.
And when you dig into what friends and family were saying, it paints a really disturbing picture. Shradha had apparently told them that Aftab was, well, controlling, and even worse, that he was physically violent. I mean, that's a massive red flag, and tragically, it was a sign of what was to come.
So, they tried for a fresh start. They packed up and moved from Mumbai all the way to Delhi, probably hoping a change of scenery would fix things. But, it just doesn't work like that. The move didn't change the relationship's dynamic at all. In fact, the fights reportedly got even worse, more frequent, usually about money and where they were going as a couple.
And this is where everything just spirals out of control. This is the moment a troubled relationship becomes a national tragedy. So let's turn to the crime itself and the absolutely chilling, calculated cover-up that came after.
So it's May 2022. Another huge argument breaks out in their Delhi apartment. But this one was different. This is when it ended in absolute tragedy. Aftab strangled Shradha. And just like that, her life was over.
And what happened next? Honestly, it's just as horrifying as the murder itself. For 18 straight days, Aftab apparently went into this systematic, planned effort to hide what he'd done. He was trying to literally erase every single trace of Shradha from the world. The details of the cover-up are they're chilling. According to the police, he dismembered her body, he went out and bought a brand new fridge just to store the remains, and then, night after night, he went out and disposed of the pieces in different forested areas around the city.
So, while all of this was happening, Aftab was trying to act like everything was normal. But months started to pass. Shradha's friends and family were getting more and more worried. Her phone was off, her social media was dead silent. And that silence, that's what finally pushed her family to go get help.
And this timeline, it just shows you the heartbreaking gap, the delay in anyone finding out the truth. Think about it. For 6 entire months, her family was completely in the dark, just wondering where she could be. It wasn't until November that her father finally went to the police and officially filed a missing persons report.
All right, so the police are finally involved. The investigation officially kicks off. But the big question is, with so much time gone by, how on earth were they going to figure out what really happened to Shradha?
Well, the investigators started with the one thing they could trace, her digital footprint. It's like a trail of breadcrumbs, right? They looked at her phone's location history, they pulled her bank records, they checked out her social media. And all of that data, every single piece, pointed to one specific place, the apartment she shared with Aftab.
At first, Aftab played dumb. He denied knowing anything about where Shradha was. But then the police started laying out the evidence, all that digital data, and his story just started to fall apart. You can't really argue with that kind of data. And eventually, he broke. He confessed to the whole thing, laying out all the horrific details of the murder and the cover-up. So, with that confession, it was over. Aftab was arrested. The police formally charged him with 2 primary offenses. First, the murder of Shradha Walker, and second, for destroying evidence to try and hide the crime.
But, this story didn't just end with an arrest, not even close. The details that came out sent these massive shockwaves across the entire country. It sparked this huge nationwide conversation about relationships, about violence, and about our own responsibilities to each other.
Which really makes you wonder, right? Why this case? What was it about this particular story that grabbed the nation's attention so fiercely? What was it about Shradha's story that just resonated with so many people and completely dominated the news for weeks on end?
See, the horror here wasn't just about the murder itself. It was the whole cocktail of factors that was so deeply unsettling. The biggest thing, as you can see, was that this happened inside a relationship, the one place you're supposed to feel safe and trusted. That was the #1 reason for the public shock. And then you add in the sheer brutality of the crime, and that cold, calculated cover-up, it just magnified the horror.
And because of all that, the case forced this massive moment of soul-searching. People all over started asking some really tough questions. Questions like, are we totally missing the warning signs in the lives of our own friends and family? What's the real line between love and control? And are we even talking enough, like really talking, about what it means to be safe in a relationship in this day and age?
You know, if there's one single takeaway from this whole tragedy, one thing that just echoed in conversations everywhere, it's this. Control and violence are never, ever acceptable. And they should never for a second be confused with love. It's such a basic truth, but this case brought it into focus in the most painful way possible.
Ultimately, Shradha Walker's story is just the tragic reminder that we all need to be more aware. We need to speak up when something feels wrong, and we really need to listen when someone tries to reach out for help. So the final question this whole thing leaves us with, it's a pretty personal one for every single one of us to think about. Are we really paying enough attention to the warning signs around us?